Today is another very sizable shake-up in the terrain world. Now all woods will be giving your units -1 to hit whenever you're behind them or in them. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, the strategy focused 40k channel where we're all about getting the most out of our miniatures on the tabletop. We've been covering the 9th edition news and developments as they've been coming out, and Games Workshop have dropped a fairly big one today, really increasing the amount of impact that the terrain has in game. We've already seen obscuring ruins for less line of sight to enemy models, but now we have the dense cover special rule, previewed both in a Warhammer community article on Tyranids and also in their live stream today. So let's have a talk about this very powerful new rule and how it's going to work in game. So the Warhammer community article didn't actually say what sort of terrain will be used in this dense cover rule, but in the live stream today they confirmed that it would apply to woods, so it's going to apply on quite a lot of battlefields across the 41st millennium. In addition, it will also apply to other things that might be able to break line of sight and make units harder to hit, but don't really necessarily offer all that much protection from bullets, so I suspect it would apply to any other big areas of vegetation. And they said it would apply to things like chain link fences or wire mesh obstacles, provided they're tall enough as per this rule. Basically, again, this is a massive, great big long-winded sentence that took me a fair few readings to actually get my head around it. I think it is a little bit clearer than the obscuring terrain special rule that we've already seen, but it's really not the easiest to interpret for newer players, I think. Basically, what it amounts to is a -1 to hit for weapons fired at units that are either on or behind this terrain feature. You don't have to be within it to benefit from it. You could be behind a set of woods, for example, and you still get the -1 to hit. We don't know if woods might have additional terrain tags, such as maybe being obscuring terrain in themselves, but I'd be surprised if they both have this and obscuring. The terrain feature must be greater than 3 inches or more in height, so basically a little low-slung railing isn't going to give you the -1 to hit. And in terms of what models get the benefit of this -1 to hit, infantry units or multi-model units must be entirely within this terrain feature or behind it. If there's one model that's exposed where you can draw an imaginary line to every part of their base, say you had one Space Marine Asva squad standing in front of it, that would mean that the squad wouldn't get the benefit of that -1 to hit from that shooting attack. However, the rules work exactly the same way if you've got an enormous vehicle or a knight or something. Basically, you have to have one model exposed where you can draw a line to every point of its hull or every point on its base, without that line going through any dense cover if you don't want to be -1 to hit that vehicle or knight. This means that as it stands at the moment, if you had a Space Marine Predator tank where you could see maybe 3/4 of it, but 1/4 of it was hidden behind woods, you'd still be -1 to hit that tank. So basically, if there's any one model exposed, then you get no penalty to your hit roll, and also if you happen to be firing within that same piece of dense cover, so say you have some close range shooting unit closing in with an enemy through woods, then they wouldn't be -1 to hit for shooting through a dense cover piece that the unit is already in. Finally, they make a note of obstacles, and basically it means that if you're within 3 inches of an obstacle with the dense cover special rule, say maybe a tall chain link fence for example, if you're within 3 inches of that particular feature, then that particular feature doesn't count towards this rule. I guess you could assume that the infantry or tanks or something are taking up firing positions where that piece that they're close to isn't going to interfere with their weapons. So again, a rule with a bit of a grammatical nightmare, but really quite a powerful rule, as being able to get -1 to hit modifiers on armies that didn't otherwise have it could really save them a lot of incoming enemy firepower. Now it is going to be genuinely important as to whether or not your units are interacting with woods, taking cover within them correctly, or managing to flank around behind them to be able to shoot enemy units without that -1 to hit penalty. This is definitely another boost for terrain being powerful on the board. So with these -1 to hit penalties being a bit more prevalent, who's going to benefit the most? Naturally this will depend on the other keywords that certain woods have. I'm honestly not sure whether they also might be light cover as well, so might also give you the +1 to their armor save. I think it could be, but then that would make them absolutely amazing defensive positions, better than ruins, and I'm not sure they'd go down that route. In the absence of any other woody related information though, having some extra -1 to hit on the board will reduce the impact of Alpha Strike. Say if you have a lot of tanks in your army and you're not able to hide them all out of line of sight of a powerful opponent's gun line who is going first, you might at least be able to hide them within some woods or something, and make them just that little bit harder to blow off the table. You could then potentially make use of good movement, or just literally situate them behind the woods with part of the base in the woods, meaning that you could fire through the woods for no penalty. In general, having more -1s to hit in the shooting phase is going to be a good thing for melee on the whole, as of course this is pretty much a straight up nerf to shooting across multiple armies, and every time that a unit misses a shot because of this rule, it'll be a good thing from a melee army's perspective. That -1 to hit modifier won't affect all armies equally, of course. Lower ballistic skill armies such as Imperial Guard, Orcs and Tau will feel the bite of this more than more elite things like Space Marines or Eldar, as making the jump between ballistic skill 4 to ballistic skill 5 is pretty big. and going from 5 to 6 for orcs is even worse, so greenskin shooting that hits on 5s really isn't going to be a fan of this. Conversely, things like Space Marines also have access to things like Chapter Masters to give 4 rerolls to hit, which means that they can reroll modified dice rolls as well, further helping to negate the effect on Marine firebases. I think that in general this will be a bigger buff to vehicles than it will be to infantry, just because of the way that the rule is handed out. It's going to be very easy to get part of a vehicle's base to be behind a woods, but it's going to be a bit harder to get every single model out of an infantry squad in or behind woods. It just means that an outlying infantry model in a squad could stop your entire squad's -1 to hit benefit, where an outlying corner of a tank certainly won't. It's going to be particularly powerful on huge vehicle units such as Imperial Knights or Baneblades, unless they gain any sort of special rules that prevent them using this quite so easily, as they're going to be super easy to get a little bit of their base behind some woods, even if you can see the rest of the knights in broad daylight. It could be pretty rough trying to take down an Imperial Knight that's got a 4+ invul save, and is also packing a -1 to hit from this rule. I guess it counterbalances slightly against the obscuring terrain rules, which they interact with particularly poorly. In terms of a defensible buff, I think there's actually going to be a lot more use on any armies that couldn't get a -1 to hit already, or at least not army-wide. Certainly things like Orcs, Tau, or Imperial Guards certainly will be able to make good use of it in a defensive manner, though in armies that could get -1 to hits on an army-wide basis, it will make those sort of rules a bit less viable to pick up. Say if you had the choice with Space Marines either having -1 to hit with infantry in cover from Raven Guard, if you know there's some reasonable odds of getting some -1 to hit in cover anyway on the board just via woods being there, then you might as well go with a different durability buff such as Iron Hands for example, which means provided there are some woods there, then you could have the advantage of both the Feel No Pain and the -1 to hit. It really is going to make quite a big difference as to whether or not the woods also get that light cover rule. If they don't, then it could mean that we have Space Marines who have to make a choice between getting +1 to their saves, which is very good to go to a 2+ armor save, or getting -1 to hit, depending on the army in question. Anything with a low armor save, where the cover save is a little bit less relevant, or that has to rely on an invul save however, will really like these woods. Things like Orc Boys didn't really gain all that much from being in cover, going from a 6+ save to a 5+, but could gain a lot more from a -1 to hit. Most definitely for demons as well, who usually save on invul saves, so cover was sort of irrelevant to them. Woods will not be irrelevant to them now, and you could actually get very meaningfully tougher units by sending things like greater demons to hang out in woods for a turn or two, as they bound up the board towards the enemy. Overall, I am a big fan of this rule. I think it certainly makes for more interesting terrain interaction on the board, while not being particularly overpowered, in combination with the rule that they said that modifiers aren't going to be able to stack. I guess my main concerns at all are that it might create some a bit swingy matches, depending on whether or not you're playing on a table with woods or a table with ruins, and it will mean that in a more competitive game, you could certainly get a big advantage over your opponent if you're an army that fights better in woods or fights better in ruins. Random swings like this aren't really my favourite, and I think it's going to make it more important for tournament organisers to specify what sort of terrain is going to be on the tables as part of their mission pack. I'm just a little bit concerned with how this could interact with incredibly durable units already. Say things like a Tau Riptide Star surrounded with drones could be really quite painful to deal with at -1 to hit, on top of the enormous amount of defensive buffs that they have already. I think we could find shooty Death Star type armies really trying to build around a unit of woods in their own deployment zone. So let me know what you think of the terrain change. It's certainly interesting and a bit more of a shake-up, and I do quite like to see terrain have an increased tactical relevance on the game. If you've enjoyed the video and would like to see more 9th edition news as it comes out, feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, where we have regular 40k things coming out every single day. Finally, if you would like to help support the channel, I'd just like to mention that I have an Element Games affiliate link, which is down in the video description below. Basically, if you live in the UK and you were thinking about buying in some Warhammer in the near future, if you place an order through Element, then they give you their standard 10 to 20% discount off, and a small amount goes to Auspex Tactics without costing you any more. There's a similar link for Amazon in the USA and Canada. Amazon again stock basically all of Games Workshop's range, as well as basically anything else that you could want to buy on the internet. Again, if you gave the link a click before making an order, then a small amount goes towards the channel. Both of these could just be a way to support the channel if you were thinking about making some purchases online anyway. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.